Hey there! So we all think we know serotonin, right? It's the happy chemical, simple, the little molecule in our brain that handles our mood. Well, what if I told you that's not even close to the whole story? Today we're going to dive into its real origin, and trust me, it's way bigger, older, and stranger than you could ever imagine.
So, get this. What if the molecule we connect with our deepest feelings didn't even start in a brain? What if it actually began as a simple shield, a defense against the raw, unfiltered power of the sun? That's the wild idea we're exploring today.
And to really get it, we have to go back, way, way back. We're talking 3 billion years. This is before humans, before animals, before even complex life. We're going back to the dawn of life on a very, very different planet Earth.
Okay, so our first stop on this journey is called More Than a Mood. Because honestly, serotonin's story is about so much more than just our feelings. It's a story about energy, it's about survival, and it's about the very building blocks of life itself.
So, let's be super clear. The hero of this story, it's not a neuron, it's not a brain. It's this one right here, a humble amino acid called tryptophan. This is the granddaddy of them all, the source code from which serotonin and a whole lot more would eventually be born.
So what is it about tryptophan that's so special? Well, that leads us right here to its secret identity as the sun catcher molecule. This is where things get really interesting, because it's all about its relationship with light.
You see, tryptophan has a kind of superpower. It's a part of its structure called the indole ring, and you can think of this ring as a perfectly designed molecular antenna, one that is just incredibly good at soaking up the energy from ultraviolet light.
Now this slide really drives the point home. We all learned about chlorophyll in school, right? It's the engine that powers plants. While tryptophan's indole ring is just as fundamental. It was one of life's very first tools for capturing sunlight, a crucial piece of the puzzle for harnessing the sun's incredible energy. So, for the earliest, simplest life forms, tryptophan was basically a tiny solar panel. It would grab a photon of sunlight, get super energized, and kick off the whole chain reaction of photosynthesis. It was the spark plug that got the engine of life running on Earth.
But here's where the plot thickens. A massive split is about to happen in the story of life. A fork in the road that changed everything, especially for our ancestors. Let's call it the Great Tryptophan Divide.
So on one side of the split, you've got bacteria, algae, and basically the entire plant kingdom. They're totally self-sufficient. They held on to the ancient biological recipe for making their own tryptophan, often cooking it up right where the action was, in their chloroplasts.
And on the other side of that divide? Well, that's where we are. At some point, deep in our evolutionary past, the entire animal line just lost the ability. We forgot how to make it. And this created a huge problem. We call it the animal's dilemma. Suddenly, for us and all other animals, tryptophan became something you had to get from food. And to make it even harder, it's the rarest amino acid out there. So for animals, getting enough tryptophan became a constant high-stakes competition. It was a precious resource that had to be managed very, very carefully.
Okay, so animals are struggling with scarcity. But what about the plants and bacteria, the ones still making their own tryptophan? Well, their problem wasn't a shortage, it was danger. Because it turns out that harnessing the sun's power has a serious dark side.
That's right. Photosynthesis, the beautiful process that literally gives us the air we breathe and the food we eat, yeah, it has a dirty secret. It produces some really nasty stuff as a byproduct.
And here's the secret: reactive oxygen species, or ROS for short. The best way to think of these is as the toxic exhaust fumes from the engine of photosynthesis. They are these super unstable, aggressive little molecules that just zip around tearing up anything they touch, proteins, cell walls, even DNA. It was a huge problem that early life had to solve, fast.
So how did life deal with this constant internal threat? Well, it did what evolution does best. It got clever. It innovated. And that brings us to our final section, Evolution's Chemical Toolkit, where we see one of nature's most brilliant solutions.
So here's the master plan. Just follow the logic. Step 1, you've got tryptophan, which is already there and is fantastic at interacting with sunlight. Step 2, that same interaction creates this dangerous ROS problem. So what's step 3? Evolution just tweaked tryptophan itself, creating a whole new family of molecules whose main job was to act as bodyguards and neutralize all that toxic exhaust.
And here it is, the big moment.
Who were these molecular bodyguards? You're looking at them. Serotonin, melatonin, and in plants, a key growth hormone called auxin. Their original job, their ancient purpose, had nothing to do with mood or sleep. It was to be an antioxidant. It was to protect the cell from the dangerous side effects of making energy from sunlight. That's it.
And this is the part that just blows my mind. All the complex jobs we associate with these molecules today, making us happy, helping us sleep, all of it, that was all added on millions and millions of years later. Evolution is the ultimate recycler. It repurposed them. But their very first job was simply cellular defense.
And you know, this chemical toolkit is unbelievably powerful. Nature didn't stop with just bodyguards. Using the exact same tryptophan starting point, it also created some of the most potent psychoactive compounds known to man, like psilocybin and DMT. It just shows you how incredibly creative this one evolutionary pathway is.
And look, don't just take my word for it. Here's a quote from the research that inspired this whole explainer. It says it right there in plain English. These molecules were antioxidants in simple cells long before they started doing all the complicated stuff in our brains.
So, the next time you think about serotonin, don't just think about being happy. Think about sunlight. Think about a 3-billion-year-old survival story. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If our moods are just an ancient echo of life's first conversation with the sun, what other deep, profound connections to our origins have we forgotten?